All right, let's dive in. Today we're tackling something that's been on my mind lately. Are The Simpsons, like, actually predicting the future? I mean, have you seen that YouTube video? The Simpsons predictions for 2025 will haunt you. Some of the stuff they show in there is really eerie.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. It really is fascinating, that collection of moments. Makes you wonder how a cartoon that's supposed to be, funny and entertaining can be so on the nose about things that happen years, even decades later.
Right. I mean, Disney buying 20th Century Fox. Who saw that coming? Well, apparently The Simpsons did. Way back in 1998, in that episode, when you dish upon a star, there's a sign in the background that straight up shows 20th Century Fox as, like, a division of Walt Disney Company. Can you believe that?
It's crazy, that throwaway joke. It actually became reality in 2017. And there are tons of other examples where they seem to predict, I don't know, technological advancements, like things we just take for granted today. One that always gets me is in 1995, long before smartphones, video calls, all that stuff, Lisa's wedding. Remember that one?
Yeah, of course.
They show Lisa using a video call, and her fiance, he's wearing this, well, it looks exactly like a smartwatch, a communication device on his wrist.
Wait, are you saying they basically predicted smartwatches back when most of us were rocking pagers?
Yeah.
That's nuts.
Right. Makes you wonder if the writers had, like, a time machine tucked away somewhere. Haha. Another one, even more recent, 2016, Friends and Family. Everyone in Springfield is glued to those VR headsets.
Oh, yeah.
And they look exactly like, well, what's it called? Apple's Vision Pro, right?
I remember. They even, like, made fun of how those things can totally consume people's lives, make them oblivious to everything going on around them. Do you think they were, I don't know, trying to warn us about the downsides of stuff like the Vision Pro, even back then?
Maybe. They definitely use humor to comment on, societal trends, the potential consequences of what we're doing, especially with technology.
Yeah, true. And it's not just VR.
Right.
Self-driving cars, they were on that too, way before companies like Tesla made it, a reality.
Right. Baby, you can't drive my car. Remember, Homer and Marge end up in one of those self-driving cars. And of course, it malfunctions. Leads to all sorts of crazy stuff happening.
Oh, man, that episode was hilarious. But, it does bring up an interesting point. Even with all the advancements in AI and all that, there's always that chance things could go wrong.
Absolutely. And I think that's what The Simpsons often do. They use humor to highlight those potential, I don't know, pitfalls of technology. It makes you think a little more critically.
Definitely. And speaking of AI, a couple of episodes deal with that too, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking of Them Robot. Remember, Mr. Burns replaces everyone at the power plant with robots. Leads to, well, mass unemployment and chaos.
Exactly. That's a theme that feels even more relevant now, AI and automation changing the job market. It makes you wonder about, like, the future of work, how we adapt to all this crazy technology.
It's a pretty big question.
Yeah.
But it's not just about losing jobs. They also have those episodes where, AI robots malfunction and cause havoc. Like a dystopian sci-fi movie come to life.
Yeah. Itchy and Scratchy Land. All those theme park robots go haywire and start attacking everyone. Plays on our fears of technology getting too powerful, like, what if it all goes wrong?
Okay, so they've gotten technology right. But what about global events? Did they nail those too?
You won't believe this. In 2014, they aired that episode, You Don't Have to Live Like a Referee. Shows these corrupt soccer officials getting arrested for, like, bribery. And then,
What happened?
not long after, boom, the real-life FIFA bribery scandal explodes, mirroring what The Simpsons, literally what they depicted.
No way. They even predicted a major sports scandal. It's almost, I don't know, creepy how accurate they can be.
Of writers, they definitely pull inspiration from current events, societal trends.
Yeah.
But they use that satire to, make fun of these powerful institutions and maybe highlight our own anxieties about the future.
Makes sense. It's like they're holding up a mirror to society. Using humor to point at our flaws make us think a little. Speaking of making... The predictions I saw was about global conflict,
Oh, you're talking about Bart to the future. Lisa becomes president.
That's the one.
And she inherits this whole budget crisis caused by, you guessed it, President Trump.
I know. This aired back in 2000, long before Trump even entered politics. But there it is, plain as day. And it's not just the presidency either. The whole episode hints at this massive global conflict, like the world is in a state of turmoil.
It's a dark one. especially given, well, everything going on right now, all the anxiety about war, political instability.
It's pretty heavy stuff.
Yeah.
And it's not just war. They also touch on the potential for, environmental disasters. Like in the Simpsons movie, Springfield gets quarantined under this giant dome because of all the pollution.
Right, right. That one came out in 2007. Definitely a cautionary tale, I guess, about what happens when we ignore the environment.
It's kind of crazy how something that seemed like a joke just a few years ago now feels, well, kind of possible, especially with climate change and all that.
Yeah, I know what you mean. It definitely highlights how The Simpsons can, I don't know, tap into those societal anxieties and present them in a way that's both funny and makes you think.
Totally. So they've predicted technology, global events, even environmental disasters. Is there anything they haven't covered?
Well, there are plenty of predictions that haven't, come true yet, but they're still worth talking about.
Yeah.
The video dives into some really interesting possibilities for 2025. Like, get this, Mars colonization, hover cars, even virtual dining experiences.
Right, hold on. Virtual dining experiences. What does that even mean?
So imagine you're craving, I don't know, fudge, but instead of actually eating it, you put on one of those VR headsets. And you virtually experience the taste, the texture, all through these feeding tubes.
Oh, that's both like super cool and kind of freaky at the same time. You're saying The Simpsons already touched on that.
They did. It's the same episode, actually, with those Vision Pro-like headsets, friends and family. Homer and Marge try virtual fudge through their headsets. Seriously. That's wild. I mean, is that really the future of food? Are we all going to be sitting around with tubes in our mouths having, like, virtual meals?
It's an interesting thought, isn't it? And as crazy as it sounds, there's already a company, Aero Banquets RMX, that's creating these immersive VR dining experiences.
Really? So maybe The Simpsons are onto something with this one, too. This is getting weirder and weirder. But before we get lost in a virtual food frenzy, there was another prediction from that episode. They showed people using holograms to communicate, right?
Yeah, they did. And they even had that classic Simpsons touch, like a smell you later hologram mail delivery.
Uh-huh. So Simpsons. It's interesting, though. We're actually seeing holographic technology pop up in the real world, like right now. Those HD3 holograms, the ones they're using in stores like Best Buy.
It's another one of those examples where they're like surprisingly accurate with their predictions.
Yeah.
Even when they're presented in this really comedic way. This is blowing my mind. Okay, so we've covered a lot. Predictions that came true, some that are still out there. But before we jump ahead, I want to rewind a bit and go deeper into some of the predictions that have materialized. There are a few that really stand out, like the one about
The U.S. winning gold in curling at the Winter Olympics, that one really got me. Seemed so random at the time, but then it actually happened.
You're talking about Boy Meets Girl, right? Homer and Marge join the Springfield curling team. End up at the Olympics.
That's the one, aired back in 2010. And the episode shows the U.S. men's curling team, they win gold against Sweden. And then, fast forward to the 2018 Winter Olympics. Guess what?
They won.
The U.S. team actually does it. Defeats Sweden in the final, just like The Simpsons predicted.
Okay, that's just freaky. Curling.
Yeah.
Of all the sports, why curling? It's not exactly, the most popular one out there.
It's those unexpected ones, right? The ones that make you scratch your head. Like, did they just throw a dart at a board of random future events and hit the bullseye?
It's like they're playing this giant game of I told you so with the whole world. And speaking of telling us things we probably didn't want to know, there was that episode, Marge Gets a Job, that one with the Kursk submarine disaster, remember?
Yeah, of course. The episode aired in 94, showed a submarine, implodes because of a design flaw, kills everyone on board. Tragically, in 2000, the Russian submarine Kursk, it sinks after an explosion. All 118 crew members, they didn't make it.
It's heavy stuff. A reminder that even with all the humor and the satire, The Simpsons sometimes, touch on real-world tragedies with an unsettling degree of accuracy. Makes you wonder if the writers, I don't know, have some secret source of information, or are they just really good at tapping into our collective, anxieties?
Maybe a bit of both. They often take current events or, trends that are emerging, extrapolate them into these, I don't know, exaggerated but strangely plausible scenarios. It's like they're saying, hey, look, this is where we could be headed if we're not careful.
That's a good way to put it. Like they're using humor to, warn us about what could happen if we're not careful, as individuals and as a society.
Exactly. And while some predictions might be based on, real-world concerns, others seem to come straight out of science fiction. That episode where Lisa and Marge, they go on a Mars colonization mission.
Oh, yeah. Back when we were all worried about Y2K, it seemed so far-fetched back then. But now, With companies like SpaceX, working to make Mars colonization a reality, it doesn't seem so crazy anymore.
Not at all. And what's funny is in the episode, Lisa actually decides to leave Mars, goes to Venus instead. It's a humorous twist,
Yeah.
but it suggests that even if we do manage to, colonize other planets, there might be unforeseen challenges. Or maybe even more appealing destinations out there just waiting to be discovered.
It's true. The future is full of surprises. Things rarely go exactly as planned. Speaking of surprises, remember that episode with Bart and Lisa? Zipping around in those hover cars?
Oh, the hover car episode. A classic. Hover cars are just a normal way to get around, soaring above traffic, no more congested highways.
I know, like something out of Back to the Future. But who knows, maybe someday, right? With all the technology these days, it wouldn't shock me if we saw hover cars hitting the market, soon.
Especially with companies like Tesla pushing those boundaries, right? What's possible in, I don't know, the car world is changing so fast.
And don't forget about that episode where Martin Prince invents a baby translator. Every parent has wished for that at some point, right? To finally understand what their little one is trying to say.
Totally. It's such a funny take on how hard it is to understand babies, their communication. But it does make you wonder, what if we could actually decode what they're saying? Would that be like a breakthrough for parents, or would it just create a whole new set of problems?
Right. Would it make parents closer to their babies? Or would it take away some of that, I don't know, mystery, that magic of those early years?
Such a fascinating thing to think about. Would it help us understand how babies develop better? Or would it somehow damage that bond between parent and child?
Definitely a topic for like a whole other deep dive. But speaking of the things that are fascinating and a little freaky, there was that episode where Homer goes to this futuristic doctor's office, gets an instant diagnosis, all based on his DNA.
Oh, yeah. Seemed like pure science fiction back then, but...
Now we're seeing these amazing advances in personalized medicine, gene editing, like CRISPR, right? Treatments tailored to your specific genes.
Exactly. It's like they predicted the rise of personalized medicine before it even happened. Who would have thought,
Yeah.
that we'd be able to look at someone's genes and then develop treatments just for them?
It's crazy. It's like, did The Simpsons predict the cure for the common cold? Or a way to, reverse aging? Okay, maybe I'm getting carried away. But the possibilities,
I know, it's exciting to think about. And while we're on the topic of things that seemed impossible, remember that episode where they showed 3D printed food?
Back then, it was just, like, a wacky idea.
And now, companies are making 3D printers that can create anything, from chocolate to pizza.
It's crazy. Imagine being able to print out, like, a gourmet meal right at home. Just push a button. It would totally change how we eat, how we think about food.
For sure. What would that mean for restaurants? The whole food industry. 3D printing could change it all.
Imagine printing out a pizza, all your favorite toppings, exactly how you like it, or, creating these elaborate chocolate sculptures perfectly made. The possibilities are, well, endless.
It really is remarkable how technology keeps changing everything. Blurs the line between, what we used to think was science fiction and what's actually becoming real. And The Simpsons, I don't know, they just have this way of capturing those trends even before most of us even know about them.
It's like they're dropping these little hints about the future, disguised as jokes. And sometimes those jokes end up, well, a little too close to home. Like that episode where Springfield gets quarantined under that giant dome because of an environmental disaster.
The Simpsons movie. It might seem like a far-fetched scenario, but with everything going on, climate change and all that, it doesn't feel as, I don't know, out there as it used to.
I know, right? It's like a warning.
Yeah.
About what could happen if we don't take care of the environment.
A cautionary tale, for sure.
Right.
About the consequences of, well, what we do, the need to work together, to solve these big problems.
Definitely. And remember that episode with the boy band? Turns out they're like a front for the U.S. Navy, using subliminal messaging in their music to recruit soldiers.
New Kids on the Block. So classic. Obviously, they're poking fun at conspiracy theories, but it does raise some interesting questions about, how powerful music is, how it can affect us without us even realizing it.
Think about it. Music has always had this power, to make us feel things, change how we see the world. But to think it could be used to, manipulate people, that's kind of scary, isn't it?
It is, and it makes you wonder, right? Are there other subtle ways we're being influenced without knowing it?
That's a good question. And it brings us back to, the whole idea of The Simpsons predicting the future. Are they just, really good at social commentary? Or is there something more to it?
The debate rages on. Are they just, really good at observing human nature, social trends? Or do they have some, I don't know, sixth sense about what's coming next?
Whatever the reason, it's clear they have this knack for tapping into our, I don't know, anxieties, our hopes for the future. And they do it in this way that makes even the most, unsettling predictions a little easier to handle.
Totally agree. They blend comedy and social commentary, and that's what makes them so, I don't know, enduring, thought-provoking. They can make you laugh 1 minute and then, make you think about a robot uprising the next.
It's a great combination. It's why we keep watching, right, even after all these years.
Yeah.
So as we wrap up this look at the Simpsons predictions, what stands out to you as the most, I don't know, compelling example, or the one that made you think the most?
Ooh, that's a tough one. So many to choose from, but the one that I just keep coming back to is the Trump one. Bart to the future, that prediction of him becoming president. It's just, I don't know, it gets me every time. Aired way back in 2000, right?
Yeah, long before he even thought about, running for office.
It really is one of their most famous ones, I think. And it wasn't just a quick joke. They actually made it, a big part of the episode. Lisa becomes president after Trump, inherits a country that's a total mess financially.
Crazy how they kind of, foreshadowed so much of what actually ended up happening years later.
It's those little details, the ones that seem so, I don't know, insignificant at the time. They often turn out to be the ones that, really come true.
Right, like that episode, When You Dish Upon a Star, that sign in the background. 20th Century Fox is part of Disney.
Yep, that's the one.
Aired in 1998, and then bam, 2017, Disney actually buys them. It's almost like they had a crystal ball or something.
I know, right? It's wild. The writers often sneak those predictions in as visual gags. Stuff in the background makes it even more, I don't know, remarkable when it actually happens.
It's like they're leaving clues for people in the future to find. And speaking of discoveries, there's this other prediction that I thought was really interesting. It's about, well, food.
Oh, you mean the food wife with the 3D printed food?
Yeah. It seemed so futuristic back then,
Wow.
But now we're actually seeing companies making 3D printers that can create, well, just about anything. Chocolate, pizza, I mean, you name it.
It's incredible how fast technology is moving, isn't it? And The Simpsons, they just, they seem to always be one step ahead.
I know. Imagine a world where you could print out any food you want on demand. It would totally change how we eat, how we cook. I mean, everything.
It's the big question, right? What would that mean for, restaurants, chefs? The whole idea of how we experience food could be different.
Think about it. Printing out a pizza, all your favorite toppings, exactly how you want them. Or, maybe you could create these, super detailed chocolate sculptures. The possibilities, I mean, they're endless.
It's pretty mind-blowing. And while we're on the topic of things that seemed impossible, remember that episode where they show this boy band? And it turns out they're being used by the U.S. Navy to recruit new soldiers.
Oh, yeah. New Kids on the Block. Classic Simpsons.
They're using subliminal messages in their music. Obviously, it's satire, right?
Right.
A joke about conspiracy theories and all that. But it does make you think a little, doesn't it, about the power of music, how it can influence us, even when we don't realize it.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, music can make us feel things so intensely, change our mood, even change how we see the world. But to think it could be used to, manipulate people, that's kind of creepy.
For sure. It's a good reminder to, I don't know, pay attention to what we're consuming, whether it's music or, anything really. Think critically about how it might be affecting us.
That's such a good point. Maybe we should all be listening to our music a little more carefully. Just in case there are any, secret messages hidden in there.
Haha, it couldn't hurt. But seriously, The Simpsons often use these really, out there scenarios, but they're actually commenting on real stuff, like how much power the media has, the potential for, for people to be taken advantage of.
Exactly. They use humor to, shine a light on these things, make us question the world around us. And that's what I love about The Simpsons. It's not just a silly cartoon. It's actually a reflection of, well, us. Society, our fears, our hopes, and sometimes, like we've been talking about, even our future.
Totally. It's a show that can make you laugh so hard you cry 1 minute, and then the next minute it's making you think about, the meaning of life.
It really is a unique show. This blend of humor, satire, social commentary, it's brilliant. And it's kept people hooked for decades.
Yeah.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into The Simpsons predictions, I have to ask, what do you think? What's the most, I don't know, compelling thing we talked about? The one that really sticks with you?
That's a tough one. So many great examples.
Yeah.
But I think for me, it's just the overall, like, weirdness of it all. How can a cartoon be so, I don't know, insightful and so accurate about things that haven't even happened yet?
Right. It makes you wonder, like, what's going on in those writers' minds? Are they time travelers?
Oh.
Do they have a secret crystal ball? Or are they just, like, super observant about the world around them?
Maybe it's a little bit of all of that. Who knows? But it definitely keeps things interesting, right?
Absolutely.
Hmm.
And, I think that's a good note to end on. So keep your eyes peeled. The Simpsons are full of surprises, and you never know what they might predict next. And until our next deep dive, stay curious and always remember, the truth is out there. And sometimes it's hiding in plain sight on your